caught us dancing.
Oh my goodness. Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to Restitching the Tapestry. It's good to see you. We are on episode 106 now. We are firmly into the 100s now.
Hey, that's my birthday number, 106.
Oh my goodness.
Hell yeah, let's do it.
Iconic. So, well, tonight we have a very interesting topic that we wanted to talk about for a while. And so I'm excited. I'm excited that we're going to talk about it. But before we get started with that, obviously, let's share how we've been doing and what we've been up to. So, Ari, how have you been doing and what have you been up to?
Should I talk about what we were talking about in the back room about my health update?
If possible, in a rated G way.
Oh, okay. Well, I've been doing really well in my college class. I have an A-. So I did really well this semester. This is the last week of the semester, so week 10, because my semesters are only 10 weeks long. So I have next week off, so I'm going to spend the time reading. Since the beginning of the year, I've read 4 books for fun. So many books. So I've been reading a lot of books. Yeah, I have a bunch of vlogs ready to go and ready to be posted. I have vlogs planned on my YouTube channel for the rest of the month, ready to go. So yeah, lots of stuff happening.
That's exciting. Did you want to talk about the other stuff too?
Not particularly.
Not particularly? Okay, that's fair.
How about you? How's your semester going?
Well, my semester's going pretty well. It just started, and well, we're on week 2. Things are going okay with it. Everything is at a manageable point, let's just say. Other than that, this week I've been actually doing some reading as well, but I've been reading like articles and stuff. That's like that's me dipping the toe back into the pool of reading.
That's okay.
Beyond that, I've been navigating a cat who has had a dental issue. He's fine now. You probably saw that in my prior video that I posted. But he's doing okay. He is heavily medicated and his tooth abscess infection has gone. But, of course, there was a lot of stress involved with navigating all of that. So
yeah.
Things are better now. Let's see. Beyond that, I've been wanting to do some writing, but I've not gotten around to it.
I know, it's so hard. It's like, what is it about writing right now? It's like I go to write and it's like it doesn't, the connection between my brain and my hand, it just won't do it. I can't do it right now.
Right. Oh, and this happens with me because I always want like all of my creative outlets to be 100%, but instead I just waver between them, and I just want to be like, I want to be able to invest something in all of them simultaneously.
Right. I want to be everywhere all at once.
All at once. Oh my God. Yeah, I need to see that movie still. I've heard it's so good.
It is. It's really good.
So Leo is here. It's good to see you. Thank you, Leo, for the compliments. Kaiju Kim is here. Hello, twin. It's good to see you. You just missed introductions, but we are still kind of in introductory mode anyway. So
just got started.
Yeah, we just literally got started. But my week has been pretty good. So do we want to do the mission statement, then get on to current event snapshot?
Oh my God, yes.
I've been meaning to make transitions for the current event snapshot, and I haven't done it yet. I need to get my poop in a group.
I know. I was going to make an animation, and then I just didn't get around to it because I was like, I need to sit down and do some drawing and get it all worked out, but I just haven't gotten around to it yet. So that's on the list.
That's okay. I think considering all that we've done to facelift the show, we're pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we live in a dynamic society where social media shapes us by creating greater opportunities for connection. It has led to a developing understanding of the adversity many marginalized communities face the powers causing the adversity, um, and those who act as bystanders as atrocities take place in real time. Our goal with this show is to make connections and have challenging conversations about social topics, current events, pop culture, and art together. Let's weave the threads of understanding with what privilege we have in order to learn, educate, and create in a world that's growing. So, yay! Did you do praying hands this time?
I did, and I was thinking about the topic as it relates to the mission statement. That's how that's why I like get lost in thought. Do the
It's your
praying hand.
meditative moment.
It really is.
That could be like a new segment in the show. Ari's meditative moment. All right, so
That's what the praying hands are for. It's to
That's
meditate
true.
on the mission statement.
That is so true. Oh, so Arby is here. Hello, Arby. It's good to see you. And Kaishana is here. It's good to see you too. Hope you both have been doing well. And yes, Leo, you missed your cue. Shame, shame, shame. Arby says, I love the new backdrop. Thank you. Actually, this is not a Linkin Park shirt. This is a Godzilla shirt. And Kaishana says code switching is a big thing, especially for Black people. Yes, especially. We're going to specifically be talking about LGBTQ plus code switching tonight. But hopefully in the future we can have a guest on to have a conversation about that. So I was going to say, Kaishana, like that sounds like something that you might enjoy having a conversation about with us at some point. So you know us, we always do part twos to everything, right? Okay, let's talk about current events. What has been going on lately?
Oh, so I wanted to talk about Jeremy Renner getting injured, because that was something I had just found out about, and I was like really like blown. I was like floored by that he had gotten injured and that he was in the hospital bed and that he was still like promoting his show, but there was talk that he might not walk ever again. Like that was a thing. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that was a thing. And like that, and I was like, I was wondering, like, do other people know about this? Like, is this, I was like, is it because because I live under a rock. Like, I didn't know other people. I was like, is this just because like I didn't know about this, or like do other people not know about this? And I was like, oh my God, like Jerry Renner is like desperately injured. And then I just found out a little while ago that Alec Baldwin is being charged with manslaughter for his participation in the Rust thing, that he's being charged with manslaughter.
Yes, I saw that too, and I was just like, oh my goodness. How do you feel about that?
I was like, it seems a little weird because I don't think did he shoot the gun? I didn't think he shot the gun.
He did shoot the gun, but he didn't realize, well, he was told that there was nothing in it. So like it was accidentally shot. Which is still odd to me. Like all of it is just super odd to me.
I didn't think that he would be culpable for that, but I guess like I suppose like that I suppose the person who is in charge of the gun should be charged with manslaughter, but like maybe they're being charged as well, but like I guess he should get in trouble maybe because he shot the gun. But I was kind of floored by that as well, because it's like the person who shot because I'm thinking back to the case in The Crow, the guy who shot Jason Lee, he didn't get in trouble for that. That was like pure accident. Like when there were not blanks in the bullet, like he didn't get in trouble for shooting Jason Lee. Like it was truly an accident. Like, so the fact that like Alec Baldwin is getting charged with, manslaughter, that's kind of an interesting, like,
yeah.
So I'm just surprised, like, why Alec Baldwin would be, but maybe it's just a different circumstance, and maybe like maybe that he's getting charged because there was some gross negligence on the set, which was a little bit different than the negligence on on the Crow set, and maybe there was some charges that came forward on that set. I don't know.
Well,
So,
my vibe is that maybe they found something that they just haven't revealed that we don't know about yet. Because what they said is that they like did like an independent investigation or something, and like it made it sound like they found like some additional details that we haven't been made aware of yet. So
interesting.
yeah. So in other words, well, additionally, I mean, there's also some political stuff going on right now. So the United States has reached its debts, its debt limit again, and of course, Congress's responsibility is to raise the debt ceiling so, government shutdowns don't happen. Well, my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, is that essentially the House is kind of like holding the debt ceiling hostage, kind of as a means to get their legislative advances.
Wait, isn't there a new Speaker of the House too?
Yeah, and that's part of it too. Yeah. Because okay, so the House has now like it has like a
Wait,
very narrow
what's the new Speaker of the House's name? I wasn't paying attention to it. All I know is that he's Republican and that
Kevin
like
McCarthy.
Kevin McCarthy. Oh, it's a
Mhm.
McCarthy. Oh goodness. Oh
Mhm.
goodness. And I bet there are so many jokes about that too.
Right. Um so Leo says, oh, about what we were just talking about. I find that Adi's being charged with the crime. Wasn't he like also producing the film? I'd have to go back and check. I
I
think
think he
he.
was. I think he was a producer on the film too.
Hmm. So I guess the film's not going to go forward now. Obviously, like I
No,
feel
it
like,
wasn't. No, it definitely got halted.
yeah, I just don't think it would be acceptable to go forward. But yeah, like there's been a lot of like political drama, and like I don't remember. I don't think we talked about this in the last episode, but like in the House when they were doing the voting, like it took forever to vote a speaker into office because they couldn't get enough votes because of a small like minority who wanted more from Kevin McCarthy. Most of these people were like extreme right wing people who wanted like very very specific things, so he had to like make
I only saw a
concessions.
small part of it because I try not to pay too much attention to politics anymore because it just depresses me because
Because it's exhausting.
well, because it's just like, as a person, I feel as though we're not in a representative democracy anymore. I feel as
Hmm.
though we as citizens are not being represented properly by our representatives. That when we vote them into office, they're not actually representing us as people.
Yeah.
That we vote them into office, and that they don't, like, even Democrats, they don't represent us as a whole,
Hmm.
that they don't do things in our best interest as a and this is just, I hate to get really political about this, but like I just feel as though they don't, like, they
it,
as a government, that they aren't representing our best interests as a
right.
people anymore. And
It's gotten to a point where it's a platform where they can exert their own agenda.
it's not even that they're exerting their own agenda, it's that they're not exerting any agenda. It's I'm not even sure
Mhm.
what they're doing anymore. It just seems as though it's a money-making scheme for themselves, and
Right.
that it's sort of like they're just it's sort of like a power grab, that they're doing it for themselves, and that it's not even that they're not even really doing anything. They're just exerting a will that I'm not even sure about, and that it's not. I don't even know what they're doing, honestly. I don't even think they know what they're doing.
Right, yeah. Well, at the end of the day, like they know that there are problems, but they get so caught up in those self-interests that like the problems just go unaddressed. And that's on both sides. Like that's definitely on both sides, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Godzilla Karu is here. It's good to see you. Hope you're doing well. Well, political things aside, do we want to start talking about code switching?
Please, let's talk about something else. Anything else?
So, okay, code switching is a topic that we've wanted to talk about for a long time. In fact, like we've mentioned it maybe here and there, but we've never really dedicated an entire episode to it. And we're of course talking about code switching with regard to being LGBTQ plus. So I guess we should probably begin in the most general fashion, and I at least define what code switching is. So how is that defined?
So the Merriam-Webster, like the dictionary that I use, there are several different dictionaries out there, but the Merriam-Webster definition that I use says that code switching is the switching from the linguistic system of one language or dialect of that to another. So it's saying you go from one linguistic system to another. So what does that mean? What does that mean? It goes, I'm going to take this one system of thought and I'm going to go from another system of thought. So give an example of that. Say you are a Southern woman and you move yourself into the Midwest. Let's say you move yourself into the Midwest, you are not going to use certain words in the company of others because you don't want other people to feel uncomfortable, and you're not going to say certain things, like because you don't want people to feel uncomfortable. Like you're not going to say y'all always if you're a Southern woman in certain company, because people might find that hilarious. You might not say certain, you might try to mask your accent. You might try to mask things. People will say, why are you talking like that? It's sort of like try to mask your dialect, try to mask your accent, try to mask certain things as a way to fit into that, try to fit into social groups.
Right. And Kaishana like adds to that, saying that it's one person who switches tone, pitch, quality of their voice in favor of others. They switch how they speak based on people's perceptions of them. And so like it begs the question of like, is it just linguistic or is it also behavioral? I would argue that code switching is absolutely both linguistic and behavioral, but I feel like the
It's
behavioral
also like the clothing that you wear. It's like saying, like when you walk into a certain situation, it's saying that like definitely like the clothing you wear, the wearing makeup, not wearing makeup. It's how you present yourself physically, physically as well as vocally. It's all about presentation.
Oh yeah. And so like obviously we should ask the question of like, why do people even do it, right? So like I do want to look at some of the comments here. Arpi does say that code switching needs to go, right? And then Kaishana did mention that code switching is a way to hide who someone is, and I think we just mentioned this one too. They switch how they speak based on people's perceptions of them. So clearly it is something, it's a situation in which people feel like they are not safe, so they have to alter themselves in some way to appeal to the dominant group of people in the space in order to feel safe. Now, like, there are situations where I think that people have kind of like owned code switching and have kind of used it as like a mode of empowerment too, to like covertly communicate in a
Well,
way.
there's so many mundane forms of code switching that I don't think people realize that they do all the time. Like, here's a mundane form of code switching. Personal example. I code switch with my doctor's office all the time. Like I am kind of in an informal setting right here with you now. But when I go to the doctor's office, I tend to be in a more formal setting because I expect a certain amount of professionalism from my doctor's office. So I'll use my legal name with them, and I'll use my sex of female at the doctor's office because I do gynecology appointments and I do certain things. So I will identify as a woman at the doctor's office because I expect them to look at me physically as a woman because of my sex at the
Mm-hmm.
doctor's office. So I will code switch at the doctor's office and physically come at them as a woman at the doctor's office because of certain things that I need from them at the doctor's office.
Interesting. Because, well, like it also gives you, I would argue, some semblance of control and safety over perception in some way. Although it's sad that you have to, you know, create that, in order to, or manufacture that in order to make other people feel comfortable, even for the sake of professionalism.
It's not that it's not about comfort, it's about the fact that, like, I'm coming at them with the fact that I need certain services, and so when I present myself in the setting, this is what I expect from them, and this is what I want from them, so this is how I'm presenting myself to them. So
Right,
it's
yeah.
it's not a matter of having to do it out of safety. It's that this is what I expect from them, so this is how I'm going to present myself to them.
I mean, would you consider that empowering or defeating in any way? What do you think?
It's just
Oh,
as Kaishana says, it's a survival technique. It's just
yeah.
what I'm doing to survive.
Yeah. So Kaishana is making some interesting comments here. Code switching specifically ties to language and dialect, yet someone who changes their clothing or facial expressions is more of on a behavioral and psychological level. So it definitely proves the fact that it can be a multi-level or multi-layered type of situation. Um, and then Kaishana also says when changing one's clothing, perception of self and expectations is more of a surface level behavior, but it's still code switching. Yeah, agreed. So RP brings up changing my voice when I'm teaching, and I actually have mentioned this on my YouTube before. So here's an interesting story. So one time I had a colleague who's a friend of mine observe, or no, was it Heather? I think it was Heather actually. So Heather and I have team taught a class before. So like we were both teachers in the same classroom teaching the same subject. And after the first class, like the introductory class, she like was just bantering with me, and then she was like, what's really interesting about you teaching, Donnie, is that you completely change your voice tone and demeanor entirely. Like, not that like I'm a completely different person, but I make it seem like I have more authority, or at least I'm striving to achieve more authority, right? And I never really thought about it until she mentioned it, because what I do when I'm teaching is I deepen my voice a bit more and I project more, kind of like this, and I'm a little bit louder and I'm a little bit more, I don't want to say imposing, but a bit more seeming like I'm thinking I'm seeming like I'm in more authority, right? Mostly because when I first started teaching, I had issues with people looking at me being like, "Oh, you're basically my age, therefore I don't really acknowledge your authority." I've had some people be uncomfortable over, how my voice normally is like this, and I sound particularly gay 90% of the time, which is fine, right? But because people got so uncomfortable with it, that's when I started code switching into having a more into masculinizing myself a lot more. And it's funny, I used to do this with dating too. So like gay men are very infamous for mask for mask. Like, I want a masculine dude because it brings me closer to the allure that is of being with somebody straight and unattainable, right? So when I used to like date, like I would like really I would really kind of manufacture this like more masculinized version of myself. And it was exhausting. Anyway, what were you gonna say? I feel like you were gonna say
I
something.
found myself no, I find that interesting that you masculinize yourself in a sense because it's like um that's so interesting because I see you as a very masculine person anyway. So this very interesting
Oh.
that
Mhm.
you that you say that you masculinize yourself because you have a beard. So like I see yourself as like a very
Mhm.
masculine person anyway. So the fact that you say that you masculinize yourself, I see you as very masculine anyway. So like
You know, it's interesting that you mentioned that because I did not start growing a beard until all of this happened as well with the whole teaching component where people weren't really acknowledging my authority, right? And of course, I would often have gay men be like, ew, you're super feminine, blah blah. So like I for some reason made the decision, which was probably a code switchy decision, to grow a beard. Found that I actually do like it because I get more response from people because of it. Or at least I did.
but
And now it just is, oh, go ahead.
isn't it kind of like an overlap though because everybody sees you in that capacity that it's more of an overlap now because everybody
Mhm.
sees you in that masculine aspect now.
Yeah. Except now I don't necessarily have to masculinize my voice or my walk. That's another one. Like I would really
Like have a heavy walk.
like I would have a heavy walk. I wouldn't do like my little like my little runway
Ooh,
sachet. Um
ooh,
oh. But now like I feel like I think now I'm at a point in my life where I feel safer, so I don't do that as much. I still do it from time like, I'll do it on the phone, um, I sometimes do it on oh my god, I do it on TikTok. Funny story, so, my partner stumbled across one of my TikTok videos because he follows me, right?
hmm.
And he was just like, "What the fuck?" Or, "What the hell are you" excuse my language. He was like, "What the hell are you doing?" And I'm like, "What do you mean? Like, what do you mean, what am I doing?" And he was just like, "You sound completely different in your videos than you do talking to me." And I'm like, "Oh, I do? What? Who what?"
I
And then
suppose
I
you your
do kind
vlogs
of.
you do have a vlog voice. I do hear you. You do have a vlog voice. I have a vlog voice too.
You do, you do. It's interesting, like, I've never really sat down and unpacked it, though. Like, what is our vlog voice? Like, why do we do it? Is it code switching too? Like
It's not code switching, it's performance voice. I'm
hmm,
on voice. I gotta present myself. Like we kind of have it right now, like you and I,
yeah.
we're kind of doing it right now, but like it's the we have to entertain, we have to be thought it's the we have to be thoughtful, we have to be interesting, we have to present
Engaging.
engaging. So it's sort of like we have to present ourselves in a certain manner. And it's sort of like it's not code switching necessarily as much as it is we have to be a personality of sorts. So it's
Mhm.
not necessarily code switching, I would say. It's more of like we have to be on.
Right, yeah. Like, I know for me, at the beginning when I was on YouTube, I would definitely masculinize my voice as code switching because I would always get comments of like, "You sound like a girl. You sound so fat." Like, well, like insert any derogatory LGBTQ plus term, and I was like, early on, very insecure about that. So I was like, now I'm like, I don't care.
So here's a subset of something that you might find interesting. What about code switching in text-based form? Because I do this on my online university. So texting versus texting in a informal setting, so like texting, like finger texting, like you would text your friends, versus like an online formal setting, like you would do in an online class.
Mm-hmm.
So is there code switching in online form where you don't see actual people?
I would say so, yeah. Um, like I know, like depending on the situation, like I will articulate myself differently than a different type of situation. Like when we're messaging each other, like that's gonna be articulated far differently than me writing a formal email to a colleague or something like that at work.
Right. I use when I text friends or if I'm on TikTok or something, I use what I call more descriptive language, um which is like more informal language descriptive of what society uses. Descriptive language is descriptive of descriptive language is society used language. It's as opposed to like prescriptive language, which is grammar or like formal grammar. So it's sort of like, you know, you got to use formal grammar in a very certain way. You've got to use MLA, formal academic grammar. It's like when I go to my online university, it's like I sit down and do very formal paragraphs and well thought out sentences, and I read out loud before I post things, and I'm
Hmm.
thinking very clearly about what I'm posting and thinking about, and I'll sit there and fret about what I'm posting for several hours, like for 45 minutes before I'm posting. And when I post to
Oh,
TikTok, I'm like
the most
farting.
like no, I relate with that. Like the most terrifying thing for me is sending like a mass email to a bunch of colleagues. Because like the other teachers, like administrator, like I'll like sit there and reread the email for like an hour out loud to be like, am I sounding competent? Am I sounding, it's interesting. So let's see. I'm looking at the comments here. Kaishana says that makes sense. Code switching happens far too often because society expects everyone to be the same, and that's just wrong. I'm not saying people should just cuss out their bosses willy nilly. And then Kaishana also says, but I think code switching is an erasure of people's identities and cultures. In some ways, it can be because, like, we could talk about this from the perspective of race and ethnicity, right? Like, um, which is something that as privileged people, like, we don't fully understand, but like there are situations where like certain spaces, like academic spaces, expect students to code switch out of their daily dialect usages, etc., right? So it's interesting. And Kaishana, when we do that episode, like I think that it would be really awesome if you could talk about that too. We could also talk about code switching from the perspective of a person with a disability, right? I know my friend Cindy, Stream of Awareness, like we've talked often about like
That's
code
actually one of
switching.
the questions on here. How does code switching affect the mental health community as far as masking is concerned? And I
Ooh.
was thinking about that as far as like, you know, with my mental health, with my bipolar, there's a certain amount of like having to keep certain things with because I have bipolar 1 with delusional disorder. There's a certain amount of like a masking that I have to do, certain amount of like I have to keep my I for lack of a better term, I have to keep my certain amount of crazy under wraps that I have to like when things get weird, not to get the
Mhm.
crazy eyes, when things get weird, sometimes I have to like pretend like everything is normal. And it's a certain amount of frustration because it's like, how do you convey to certain people that I'm having issues right now and like not it's like I have to pretend like everything is normal while I'm being triggered at the same time. And it's like I have to tell like I like sometimes I'm just triggered in normal everyday life and I can't tell anybody about it because um it's like I have to have just like a normal conversation with them and they're triggering the fuck out of me. They're saying like things that are just like triggering me and triggering me and triggering me. And I'm just like, I have to cater to them and cater to their language and keep them feeling comfortable in the situation and keep masking and keep the
Hmm.
situation like under their wraps while masking the fact that I am triggered and that I am anxious and that I am feeling out of control and that there's like swirling going on in my head right now, like or during a situation and that things are that there's a war going on in my head while there might be completely normal and fine. And like that
Interesting.
happens that and it's like it's I don't know if it's code switching necessarily, but it's definitely like sometimes it just feels like it's so out of control at times, and I just have to act like everything is normal, and it's sort of like it feels sort of like code switching at times because it's sort of like I have to cram all of this into a tiny box of this system of I have to make everything seem like it's okay and normal, and that I have to make it seem like everything is fine when it's not fine. And I have to work within the parameters of their conversation, and I have to use their language to talk about how I feel. And sometimes it's like very difficult when how I feel is I want to scream. Like it's like sometimes you just don't understand. Like,
Right. And see, like on the anxiety front, I can sort of connect with that, but on the bipolar front, I can't because I've not experienced it in the same way that you have, right? But I can only imagine that like having to worry about that perception of you that another person is, having, like that would be very taxing.
well, just the and like not like getting to the point of like because I don't have you had full blown psychosis before?
No, I've not. I've
He-
I've had
Um,
like I've had like light because I have bipolar too. I've had like some delusional thinking, but it's mostly to do with people's perceptions of me.
oh, okay.
Hmm.
So like full blown psychosis is terrifying. I don't know how to explain it other than it's like reality is it's like reality just gets flipped. And
Hmm.
so like you're just trying to like hold on to your perception of reality while everything is basically on fire. um and so like it's like yeah, it's like falling down the rabbit hole while trying to so it's sort of like um trying to hold on to some semblance of some kind of so like it's like trying to I'm not trying to make this about mental health, but it's like trying code switching is like trying to hold on to
Like an
trying
anchor.
it's like it's like trying to meet them on that level while at
Mm,
the same time falling apart. So I don't know how to explain it,
interesting.
but it's
No, that
it's an
makes sense.
interesting mental health and code switching are a very interesting thing because it's like at this dynamic you're trying to meet them at that same level while at the same time you're falling apart. You know what I mean?
Well, and I think that we can agree, based on what we've discussed so far, that in many situations, not all necessarily, but in many situations, code switching goes hand in hand with internalization,
Hmm.
right? Like when a lot of people code switch, they are sacrificing something in order to do it, right?
And I'm curious to see how code switching works in the mental health community for that intersectionality of like people who, like BIPOC persons in the mental health
Mhm.
community, like having to maintain that level as well as like mental health wise. Like how does that work? How does that work? Like
Oh, yeah. The
because
more intersections there are, the more, like, the more variables involved when it comes to navigating that.
because I'm curious to see like how do you maintain how do you maintain while falling apart? Like how does that work? I don't even
Mhm.
know because like as a white person trying to maintain is it's impossible sometimes like to
Mhm.
maintain. So I can't even imagine how it's like as a black person when they put all that emotional labor on you. Like I can't even imagine like the amount of pressure is probably just like up here.
Right, yeah. And it's cumulative.
Yeah.
It's definitely cumulative. So, have you ever stopped code switching suddenly?
Yes.
What happened when you did that? Whenever
I
you've
tried
done that?
I did it with my family.
Oh, okay, so describe code switching with your family. I don't think you've mentioned that yet.
So, with my family, I basically like started going by because they know me as Randy and they know me as a woman. So I at one point was just like, hey, by the way, I'm non-binary and bisexual, and my name's Ari. And by the way, yeah.
Oh, what, what was that?
And
Love it.
they were like, good luck with that.
Oh,
they were
no.
like, I was like, ha cha cha, ha cha cha, ha cha cha. And they were like, I was like, ha cha cha, ha cha cha.
Is that your
I don't know if I
signature
said that
move?
literally, but I was just like, but I was like, as a teenager, I used to do it all the time where I would come in and I would be like trying to turn off to do the code switching I would turn off the code switching and I would speak like a teenager to them. Like I would be real with them, talk to them like my friends would. I'd swear in front of my parents and they would freak out.
Oh, no.
be like, You'd
Oh,
be like, you swear like a sailor.
it's interesting. I don't remember code switching with my parents that much.
Oh, I did. Oh my god. Be like, you
At
swear like a
school, I did.
sailor. Why do all my daughters swear like a sailor?
Oh my goodness. Um, has anyone tried to flip your code by switching it back on you?
The doctor's office. The doctor's office flipped it back on me. I don't know how they found out. They found out my name that I used for myself, Ari, and they flipped it back on myself to try to make me feel more comfortable. So they
Ooh,
found out that I was
interesting.
non-bi. They found out I was non-binary. They found out my name that I used for myself, and they've they've now mispronounced my name that I give for myself. So they call me up and they call me Ari.
Oh,
So in an attempt to make me feel more comfortable for myself, they call me Ari. Is this
eerie.
Ari Whipple? Is this Ari Whipple? And I go, you can call me Randy. So in an
Eerie.
attempt to make them feel more comfortable, I use my legal name and try to present as a woman. And they try to make me feel more comfortable by using my name that I give myself, Ari. But they mispronounce.
Oh, it's okay. My parents have always called me Donald. That's my legal name, Donald. And I have not gone by Donald in 3,000 years, basically. Um, but my parents were like the only people who would like still call me
Is
that.
is it code switching to use your name? Is names code switching? I don't know. It to me it's a form of code switch. I feel like your name is like ultimate code switching for me because it's like it's how
Mhm.
you present yourself. It's how you present yourself in a setting because it's like how you show yourself or show up in a setting.
A
So for
name is
me,
so powerful. Think, yeah, like, I mean, if we think of it from the non-binary and the trans perspective, a name is an extension of one's identity. So I would say so. Yes, definitely.
okay. This is like that to me is like how I code switch is like how I present my name and like that's like to me that's like how I code switch is like how what name I give people and like how I present my name and like how I present my body and like how I present my like like if I put on makeup or if I don't put on makeup or if I um like like even the tone of voice um and like if I use larger words or if I don't use because like in these settings like on here like I'll tend to use more like intellectual words. You
I
know what
do
I mean?
that too. Yeah. Yeah. And like, whereas, like, if we were like together in person or just having a one-on-one conversation, we'd be
Swearing,
swearing like sailors.
right?
Right. Oh my goodness. Um, so other ways I've had, okay, I haven't necessarily, I don't know if this counts as like flipping the code switching. So, oh, do I code switch when it comes to going into like a sporting goods store or like like if I go get my oil changed? Oh, do I man it up? I go in there and I'm like, hey man, how are the Lions doing today?
Have you ever put in your phone voice in order to get something done? Do you have a phone voice, a customer service phone voice? Hi, how's it
I
going? Oh
do.
my goodness. It's so nice to talk to you. I just How's it going? I just wanted to get something. I just needed to get something done. Could you change my address? Oh yes, this is my new address. My new address is 575.
Yeah, yep, I've done that before. Well, okay, so a month ago I got my oil changed. Get this. I go in there and I'm like wearing a hat backwards. Like I look like the straightest straight that ever straighted. Like super duper straight. And I'm just like, sup, bro. I can't even do it convincingly. But then like because it was somebody I knew, like sort of, and then they tried to do that like handshake thing with me.
Like the
Like where
hand.
they do like the like bam, like shoulder pat, weird side hug thing. And
I
I
want
fumbled
that.
that. I fumbled that so badly. I was just like T-Rex arm. I was just like, uh,
I
uh,
want.
uh.
I want that.
Well, next time I see you in person, I need the practice. So,
I need to practice. I want to do that. I want.
but I
I
felt
want to do
so.
mask. Can I? Should I practice my mask voice? Like, can I practice my masculine voice?
Do it.
Do it. Hi, my name is Brandy, and I'm here to say this
Oh,
is my masculine voice.
oh. I thought that was great.
Hi, hi.
See, for me, it's not difficult for me to do a feminine voice. Hello. I mean, when I did drag for Halloween, that was excellent practice for me
Yeah,
because I had to keep the illusion real, right?
yeah.
If anything, I feel like people in the LGBTQ plus community who are often code switching
Oh, you froze. Donny, you froze.
Did I fade?
You froze.
I faded. Oh no, could you still hear me?
No.
No? Oh well, let's hope that doesn't happen again. Anyway, what I was saying is I feel like those of us in the LGBTQ plus community, we're great at acting because we're so used to code switching. So like we all at this point deserve like Emmys and Oscars. Where's my Golden Globe? Where is my Golden Globe, damn it?
Next to my Webby.
So, what are some good reasons to code switch?
Well, like I said, it kind of compartmentalizes things. So when you have certain things like this is when you have like your job compartmentalized, when you have your doctor's office compartmentalized, when you have your college compartmentalized, like you go home and you can be your certain person and just have your life, and it's separate from, you have like work life, you have home life, you have, and it's separate. It's separate. You keep it separate. It's a separate life. It's very delineated.
Yeah. Well, and so I agree with that 100%. I also think like code switching for safety, like, I mean, it can be a good thing if it does keep you safe. And I don't think, because I know like we talked earlier about like, oh, is code switching a good thing or a bad thing? The code switching itself, I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. I think the systems, like the oppressive systems that marginalize people, those systems are why code switching exists, because code
Right.
switching, like Kaishana was saying, is a survival mechanism, right?
Right. When we do it as a way to, when it's the oppressive systems that harm people that have to do those things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like if oppositely, if we were to talk about like negative reasons to code switch, um I would say like if you're in a safe place where you can be yourself but you're still code switching, that could potentially be a negative thing, because that would mean that you could be, you know, just kind of like breathing because you're so used to it, sacrificing a part of yourself, at your expense to code switch to, you know,
If you're
does
code
that make
switching,
sense?
if you're code switching because you feel like if you don't, it will, you will be physically or like you will be abused, or you will suffer some kind of repercussion for that. And when you do it, it affects your mental mental or physical well-being, then there's a problem.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I agree 100%. Yeah. So like that does it, because we did have the question of like, is code switching a fear response? Yes, I would say that in many instances it is. Um, I think we already talked about the emotional labor tidbit.
I think it is.
So,
I think there is an emotional labor aspect to certain people,
mhm,
to marginalized communities, that, and like I said, with the mental health aspect, with people who have to mask, mental health wise, and especially with that intersectionality, that emotional labor of having to double mask, of code switching and mental health. I just can't imagine what that would be like, having to do that.
right. I think another thing for me with regard to the emotional labor part is like when I've had my code switching pointed out to me, and like when I've had it like questioned, like, Donnie, why are you doing that? You're in a safe place, like you don't need to necessarily. Like it kind of like gets me in my head where I'm like, am I being a genuine person? Like, is there some part of me who is trying to manufacture something for some reason.
Some of it's a trauma response too, because you've been
Yeah.
in so many situations in the past where you have felt unsafe. So even when you get into a safe situation in the future, it's that you're so distrustworthy of situations because you've been in unsafe situations in the past that it's like you'll never trust anyone or anything ever again because you've been in so many unsafe situations in the past.
Yeah. So this just, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. This just proves that code switching is so unbelievably multi-layered. Like there are
Mhm.
like aspects of it with regard to like social presence, with regard to trauma, like you were saying, with regard to safety, authenticity, right? So like I guess at the end of the day, I don't think I could ever question someone's authenticity if they code switched, because to me, if for some reason they are exerting a trauma response, then that's something that they have to navigate still, or something that they have grown accustomed to that I have really no right to criticize, if that makes sense, right? Because I like because the way we code switch is an extension of our history and our experiences.
Mhm.
Hmm. I'm really intrigued by that concept of covert code switching. Like, because people do it. Like, people do it in order to communicate in some ways, like, under the perceptions of other people around them. Have you ever engaged in covert code switching, do you think?
What do you mean by that?
Like, have you ever code switched and had a person near you who is aware of your code switching, and subliminally, like, you are conveying a message through it? It's kind of like
Now you're getting
mind-boggling
into
to
my
think of.
delusional thinking here. Now you're getting into my delusional
Oh
thinking.
no, I'm sorry. I'm
I
sorry.
don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of an example of when I've done it, but I can't, like, because I've had people ask me that before though too. I've had people be like, Donnie, like, um, have you, like, and another person, say in the LGBTQ plus community, in a room full of, you know, cis heterosexual people, code switched covertly as a means to convey to one another that, yeah, I'm uncomfortable in this situation. But it kind of like went beneath the attentions of the other people. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah.
I think I have done that before,
Mhm.
if memory serves me correctly.
Yeah.
I don't know.
RB,
If I were in a
I bet you'd be
machine
surprised.
shop
I
with
bet you
another
would be
LG.
surprised at RB says he's never code switched before, but I bet you'd be surprised. It's much more prevalent than you think it is. It's that it's that using certain language in a certain situation, it's that and you think that you haven't done it, but it's like using formal or informal language in a certain situation. It's like you would not use certain language in a certain situation. Like you would not swear in church. You would not you would not text you would not text certain people certain things. You would just not say certain things to certain people. You would not talk in certain voices to certain people. You would not talk about certain things. You would not talk about it's just it's not and I don't know if it's topics necessarily, but you just wouldn't use certain language with certain people. And it's just a it is bias. It's bias, but it's also like you wouldn't talk to an old grandmother like she was your best friend. You just wouldn't. Maybe you
Mm-hmm.
would. Maybe you would, but it's just it's you would use specific language with a certain type of person, with certain people, and it's just because of there are biases. It's and part of that is code switching. It's just part of some of it is just naturally part of who we are that we just use certain language with certain people, that we are more gentle with old people than we are with, and we just use softer, kinder language with old people in general, unless you're a certain type of person, and then some people don't. But some people, most people do. Most people will code switch, and
Right.
in general.
So, like, it almost sounds like it's central to the human experience at this point for many.
Some things are. Some things are that there is natural code switching with certain types of things.
I'm nerding out. Sorry I disappeared for a second. My internet is apparently being dumb tonight. But I think that, did we cover everything? I think we did. So we will be doing a follow-up to this conversation because I feel like there's many other layers to code switching that we could talk about, especially with regard to neurodiversity, race, ethnicity, etc. Right? But ultimately, I think this is a great conversation. Is code switching a bad thing? I don't necessarily think so. What do you think?
Not in all circumstances, but when it comes to marginalized communities, I think that code switching is necessary. I think that it has bad connotations because we often use code switching to work against marginalized communities and people who are we use it to kind of force marginalized communities into a like square peg in round hole. We do that
Yeah.
is as far as code switching goes, and that's how we know code switching in the more formal sense. So yes, in that sense that it's bad. But code switching is something that we all do in a certain sense. That it's a very it's kind of prevalent thing. I think it's more prevalent than people realize. It's a thing that happens all the time in a lot of everyday situations. It's a common thing that happens in a lot of everyday all encompassing situations. But I don't think people realize how often we code switch in our daily lives. And I
Right.
think that if you look around, if you start analyzing your day-to-day life, you'll realize how often you code switch.
We should do a code switching journal. Any opportunity to do more journaling.
Absolutely. Just if you just start looking around, you'll start seeing it.
Oh, I just code switched. Let me write that down.
Tweet about it.
Oh no! Like climb that hill and
Stay
holler
off
into
Twitter.
the void.
Stay off Elon's Twitter. Stay off Elon's Twitter. It's the garbage
Who is
dump.
she?
The
I don't
garbage
know who
pile.
she
The
is.
trash fire. The trash fire.
Oh my god. Well, my friends, this has been a funny conversation. And I hope that you enjoyed it as well. So next week we will be off, but we will be back the week after that. Okay. So thank you all for tuning in. We love you. Any parting words for the audience?
You're wonderful. You're
I
amazing.
can't. I'm failing at making a heart the way you're making it. Anyway, I can't do it.
Do you be authentic? Don't worry about the rest. It's okay.
And know that we love you and that in this space here, you are always free to be you.
See, I
Fare
can do
thee
it both
well.
ways. I can do it both ways.
I've never been known for doing it both ways, so. With that thought in mind, over and out. Have a good night, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.